Pollen Pal app.
Time to take a look through the papers now, joined by the journalist and author Gemma Forte and the author and broadcaster Emma Wolf. Good to have you both with us. Thank you so much. We spent all of last hour, although we were fairly pacey, talking about VE Day. And that's exactly what the Palace wants us to talk about, isn't it? The VE Day part, rather than anything to do with them.
Absolutely, yeah. The King has been pictured. He was attending church at Sandringham for the first time since that bombshell interview with Harry on Friday dropped suddenly out of nowhere. I don't think many people were prepared for that BBC interview that happened in California, in which he talked quite painfully, I think, for many people, quite intimately about the relationship and the breakdown in relations with his father and with the royal family, the wider royal family. And I think as we start the week of celebrations in VE Day today, the Palace are really keen that this doesn't detract from what we're meant to be celebrating in this country. And obviously the media love it. The papers have had so much coverage of Harry and the backlash against him and all of that, and just picking apart what's happened, what about this relationship, is there any chance of a reconciliation, all of that. Of course, the Palace, through sources, of trying to point out that, you know, how can you heal a rift, how can you have, you know, closeness again and a reconciliation when there's just no trust? But I think, to go back to VE Day, you know, the Palace really want to focus on that, and they've kind of done what they usually do, which is maintain quite a dignified silence, not sort of reacting and responding to everything that Harry and Meghan say, because, you know, as the late Queen said, recollections may vary.
And also never explain, never complain, which is what they're doubling down on. But, you know, there's this line here in The Times talking about Harry and Andrew trying to not be overshadowed by them. Courtiers apparently have dubbed them the Dukes of Hazzard.
And the two spares. I mean, they are two men who've never really had the leading role that their brothers have had, and have found themselves looking for a role, you know, just very, very wealthy, very, very famous, very royal, but not with any real purpose.
But Prince Philip struggled to have a role and created the Duke of Edinburgh award scheme, and everyone benefited as a result. Found his way through. So I think, you know, I can be sympathetic to it, but I can also say, well, look, there are ways you can deal with that challenge. 100%. Get it together.
Go skiing.
Go skiing. Meanwhile, this was remarkable imagery of people in fatigues and police officers. That's the bit that really caught me, with this major terror plot by Iran foiled.
Yes, absolutely. So police and MI5 have foiled a suspected plot by Iranian terrorists. And you read this and you think, OK, can we give some credit to the Home Office, to Yvette Cooper? We have no idea day to day what is actually going on behind the scenes. We've all seen the TV dramas, and I think real life does reflect some of those things, like spooks and so on. And you have to be so pleased that this has been thwarted. And yes, you saw these very dramatic scenes, people being arrested in different parts of the UK. And at the moment, we don't know much detail, but of course there's going to be all sorts of discussion about, given what's happening in the Middle East, you know, is it the fact that we're providing weapons to Israel? We don't know. There was another plot that was foiled over the course of last year, where a TV network was being threatened as well. It was a very severe threat. They had been critical and outspoken against the Iranian government. So at that point, that's what that was all about. So, yeah, all I can say is I'm very grateful that for the Home Office and MI5 for thwarting these plots, because the alternative is too terrifying to think about.
And also the changing nature of those plots, and the way that it's not kind of the established extremism or threats that previously existed that we kind of had slightly put into a mould.
Yeah.
But the way that's evolved and the way social media is playing into that evolution and kind of the changing face of it is remarkable, and kind of leads us kind of quite nicely to talking about social media, actually, because Facebook putting children's lives in danger, that's according to a security chief.
Yeah, the National Crime Agency, the chief of the National Crime Agency, is saying that children's lives are being put at risk because of a dramatic fall in the reporting of child sexual abuse cases or possibilities. And it's to do with end-to-end encryption. So basically, because Mark Zuckerberg has he has decided to introduce end-to-end encryption across Facebook. there's been a massive 40% drop in reporting of incidents of child sexual abuse. So Facebook reported 6.9 million fewer incidents this year, in 2024 year, as compared to 2023. And for other social media platforms, they have increased their detection and they've increased their reporting. And the problem is, the NCA is saying this kind of encryption, it prevents Facebook from actually seeing the illegal behaviour, and it then hinders the crime agency from gathering evidence, from conducting investigations, and from arresting perpetrators. So this is really, really serious. It hasn't dropped, you know, the cases haven't dropped by 7 million. These are the reporting of cases.
Do you think how much power these tech giants, these billionaires have? They are essentially ruling the world, really. You saw them all lined up at Trump's inauguration, and yet they don't seem to have the responsibility and accountability of leaders who are elected in. And we can't do anything about it as a democracy.
And remember, their children, they don't like their children on social media. Most of these Silicon Valley tech bros, they admit that their kids are not using smartphones, they're not on social media and Facebook.
And they really do need to be regulated much further, I believe.
Oh, hugely so. And you kind of think, you know, Facebook 2004 founded, a lot of those 2004, 2005, 2006, 2007, whatever the specific year, 20 years. 20 years we've still been failing to adequately protect our young people.
Yeah, it's disgusting. And of course, I think so many of us watched Adolescence. That was a real sort of good shot across the bows, a reminder that you've got children being indoctrinated, radicalised, potentially harmed, leading to harm in their own bedrooms.
In their own
bedrooms.
bedroom,
Think they're safe.
invisible.
They're not down the park. Oh, there's no stranger danger. Yes, there is, but it's in their bedroom with them. So it's all of this feeds into the same thing. You know, and again, these are people that have got billions of pounds and they are ruling the world. And quite frankly, they are a threat. You know, they should be absolutely first and foremost protecting children.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. I'm kind of grateful that my childhood kind of preceded social
me too.
media. It's hard enough being 15 at the best of times, but then doing that...
But at least you left the bullying and the kind of the threat, the outside world, at least you left that in the outside world. And now, as you say, it goes back into their bedrooms.
And you can be as strict as you like, which I was. We never... My kids are older now. They were never allowed to charge their phone in their bedroom at night and all of those things. And yet, now talking to them as young adults, you realise what they were exposed to. Sitting on the bus, you know, at their friend's house, you know that children as young as 9 are being exposed to pornography. Like, their poor young minds are being so...
It really is so damaging.
Like, warped. And I just feel really strongly about this. And yet those people at the top do very little.
I'm sure they would sing a different tune.
I'm sure they would.
But the reality
the
reality goes against it, doesn't it? The reality goes against it. What you just talked about.
Yeah.
Just very quickly, we talked to the minister earlier in the programme about reform. Lots from Louise Haigh in the papers this morning.
Oh, my goodness, yes. So I find it really, really interesting that nobody is talking about the fact that the Greens made huge gains in the local elections, record amount of seats, over 800. You know, the Lib Dems did very well as well, but of course it all comes back to looking at reform. And then there seems to be this knee-jerk from Labour just to sort of mirror them. And I personally think it's completely the wrong thing. I think the biggest issue that the country is facing at the moment is inequality and the fact that people can't raise a family on one wage, let alone 2. And until they start to address that, I think, yes, reform do indeed pose a real threat. But I also think it's going to be interesting seeing reform in their positions of responsibility now and how they'll deal with local councils. And it's all very well trying to, you know, Farage coming out and mirroring some of the sort of Musk language about just sort of, you know, axing jobs. Well, that's not playing out very well in the States.
No, and you saw Canada go against that kind of trend. You
And
saw
Australia
go against that
exactly.
trend.
So why are Labour not chasing a progressive, really forward-thinking strategy? And absolutely do need to put money in people's pockets, and not just the working classes, the middle classes as well. Everybody's completely squeezed, and improve the quality of life for people, not just the 1%.
We'll have to leave it there. Plenty more to come on Sky News Breakfast.
Jubilation in the streets